What is going on, everyone? Happy Wednesday. Welcome into this or today's edition of GC Live with yours truly, Jack Veltri, and my co-host Kendall Smith will be here in just a few minutes. She's just running a little bit behind. We know how Kendall is. She's got everything in her life is insanely busy as usual, and I believe she was telling me yesterday the Charlotte Knights, the team she covers out in Charlotte, North Carolina. They have a doubleheader today. So I can only imagine how busy it is. But Kendall will be joining us in just a few minutes. But I hope you all are doing well. Thank you guys for choosing to listen to me ramble on and talk about South Carolina football. What a time it is right now. It was just literally about a week and a half ago where the Gamecocks squeaked out a 23-19 win over Old Dominion, and fast forward to now, and Columbia's getting ready to host College Game Day. If you told me that sitting in the press box, South Carolina's down, I think they were down like 19-16 against Old Dominion. If you told me that this program would be having College Game Day come to town and they have a chance to go 3-0 for the first time since 2012, I simply wouldn't have believed you. But that is the case, and it's because of how well this team has played in that Kentucky game. It was a outstanding performance, night and day difference, and they look like a completely different team. So before we get into a little bit more of my final thoughts from Kentucky, and then we're going to turn the page to LSU rather soon here, I want to talk to you guys about our main sponsor of the day, Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. If you're in the need for buying a home or you're needing help with your mortgage, go ahead and give our guy Clint a ring. He has been in the home loans industry for a long time now. He's been a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central, and he's just a big Gamecock fan like everyone else here. So if you want to give him a call, he's helped out our very own Wes Mitchell and former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth. You can give him a call at 803-422-6797, or you can go to clinthammond.com, or the NMLS number for him is 71597. All that information is above me. So if you have any interest in getting help with your home or whatever the case might be, any of your home needs, Clint is your guy to get in touch with. And good morning indeed, Frederick Cooper. Appreciate you hopping on. I know it's a little early today, but for scheduling purposes, we're going to go a little early this morning. And and then I'll be back live on Sunday to get my final thoughts from South Carolina's game against Kentucky. And speaking of which, we have our tardy guest.
I'm sorry. Hello. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Jack. How are you?
You're late. No, I'm just messing. What's up?
I know. What's up with you?
Not much. Just waking up like 10 minutes ago and we're here. So it's it's gonna be another busy day, but we're here for. I know it's busy on your end, right? Doubleheader today. Is that right?
Doubleheader here tonight. Yes, you are keeping up very well. So currently in Charlotte, and we've got a doubleheader here tonight. I know you have a busy day too. The coordinators will talk a little bit later today, so we'll have plenty of coverage on that over on GamecockCentral.com. But I don't know about you, Jack. I am excited for this weekend. I am pumped. I cannot wait. I'm sad I won't be able to be there. I know that you will be there, of course, and it'll be an amazing experience. You weren't at game day last year here in Charlotte, were you? Like behind the scenes?
So they did the whole day before thing where you get to talk to I went and talked to I think it was Desmond Howard and Reese Davis, but on the day of the game, no, I don't think so. You were there though, right?
I was, yes. The day of the game here in Charlotte last year between South Carolina and North Carolina to kick off the 2023 season. Got to go behind the scenes of College Game Day. They allow some media back there to stand on the stage and around the talent, and you get to see everything that kind of goes on behind the scenes. So it's really, really neat and so cool. And I obviously loved that it was here in Charlotte because that's where I'm from. But there's definitely a different vibe, a much different vibe, in my opinion, when it's at the actual college town. So I could not be more thrilled for Columbia, for the Gamecocks, and I'm just so excited to see College Game Day finally back in the Soda City. It's going to be great.
It's going to be so different because, and you and I were both students here when this happened, but SEC Nation had been here, I think maybe like 2 or 3 times during our time in college, and it's cool and all, but this is going to be totally different, right? That sense of meaning. It's bigger. It's grand. The big names are out. It's exciting. It's a whole weekend thing. Whereas SEC Nation is it's fun, but it's much more downscaled, I think. So this is going to be really cool. It's first time game day's back here since 2014, I think, when Carolina lost to Missouri. So we'll have to see how it goes. I'm excited to see who the guest picker is, and
who do you think it's going to be?
Are
you going to place a bet on anybody right now?
If I had to guess, for entertainment purposes, I would probably go with Trick Williams, just because he's, former Gamecock football player. Maybe a lot of people don't know him that way, but from WWE standpoint, Pat McAfee, things like that, the entertainment value, I'd probably go with him there. A choice I would personally pick, if it weren't Trick, I'd go with Paul Maneri, the new baseball coach for South Carolina, because he has the connections to LSU, winning the national championship back in 2009, and then now he's at South Carolina, but it's not the biggest name. So South Carolina doesn't have a ton of big names. I mean, Darius Rucker, but he's done it 2 or 3 times now. So let's mix it up a little bit, ESPN. But I think Trick Williams is probably the ideal choice. What about you?
Hey, if it's Paul, if he doesn't pick South Carolina, which I know he will, he definitely will. He knows better than that. All I'm saying is he's going to make some LSU fans mad with that one. I don't know. I agree. I think it could be Trick as well. Darius obviously did it last year, so that would be someone that you would think of. But I do agree with you. I think they'll change it for this year. That's what I'm really excited about. I'm excited to see who the celebrity guest picker is. Dawn Staley would be a great
Dawn would be another.
Yeah, of course. She would be fantastic out there. So a lot of names that you could think about potentially being that celebrity guest picker. And I guess we'll just have to see. It's what comes with the excitement of college game day being on campus. A big one this weekend between LSU and South Carolina. We're going to talk about it here today. We've got a special guest that's going to join us on the show here in just a little bit. But Jack, I always want to call you Wes because I'm so used to doing these shows with Wes. So I have to in my head think about it.
Do I have his resemblance or something?
It's just that I'm so used to saying Wes that in my head I need to.
Man, it's okay. I've been called Chris. I've been called Wes. It's okay. I get it. I play second fiddle to them, I guess.
So. Well, we got Jack on the show today, and we love Jack.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Jack, I want to start it off broad. And we kind of talked about this last week, just keys for the Kentucky game. And it was such a good game from South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
You really couldn't ask for better if you were the Gamecocks. We've talked about the Kentucky game for the beginning part of this week. So I want to spend more time on this show, really looking at LSU and looking at what South Carolina needs to do in order to be successful this weekend against LSU. We had that Kentucky game circled on the calendar for such a long time that, at least in my mind, I feel like I was so focused on Kentucky that now that LSU is here, it's like, okay, new week. We're not worried about Kentucky anymore. We've been worried about Kentucky in that game for 8 months. Now we are on to the next team. What do you think, Jack, starting broadly here, it will take for South Carolina to pull off the win against LSU?
Well, first off, that Kentucky game was insane. That was really cool to see. Shoot. I'm glad this was announced a few days after, because I was walking around the stadium and I see someone with a credential from Netflix. I'm like, what the hell is Netflix doing here? And a few days later, I see KSR, Kentucky's On3 site, post about how Netflix is featuring Kentucky in a SEC documentary or something for next year. But anyway, so I think that's going to be quite comical when you see South Carolina beating the, whatever you want to call it, out of Kentucky. But moving forward to this week, the biggest thing for me is this team going to be locked in to where it's like, okay, you beat Kentucky, you got the national spotlight on you, game day's coming to town. How do you block out all these external factors and focus on the task at hand? And we've seen this team kind of I don't want to say crumble under pressure, but you go back to North Carolina last year with game day being in town and stuff. They didn't perform well. And then you go back to 2 years ago when they beat Tennessee when no one expected it, and then the spotlight's on them. They played well against Clemson. So it's like, I expect them to be fine. I don't think it's going to get to their heads. At least that's how it sounded, because that was certainly a question I had for Shane Beamer and all the players we spoke to yesterday. Some of them have been through this before. going back to that 2022 season. So I think they're going to be fine from that standpoint. And then it's just about playing a good football game. I think if you're asking for three big keys for the game itself, it's going to be a little bit wet on Saturday. So you got to be able to run the football well. I think that is point number one. Got to get Rocket going against this LSU defense, which I don't think has been particularly great. It's not terrible. I think it's better than last year with the new defensive coordinator in there, but we're going to have to see what happens on that end. I think the biggest matchup might be the LSU offensive tackles, who are really highly regarded. And I think going up against Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard, whoever wins that matchup really sets the tone for whether LSU's offense can throw the football or South Carolina's defense continues to do what it does and really play well. And then that leads me right to my final point. Like, if South Carolina wins that battle up front, they need to take LSU's passing attack out of the game. We saw what happened when Brock Vandagriff for Kentucky, their quarterback, couldn't do anything throwing the football, and you have to rely on the run game to get you some yards. Well, the thing with LSU is they're already down a few guys in the running back room, so that's going to be tough for them. And this is a little bit of a banged up Tiger team coming into town, and I'm not saying like that should mean South Carolina automatically wins, but it's like, you got game day. You got the home field advantage. I know it's a noon kick. I know no one's happy about that, but I'm telling you, like, I think South Carolina is catching LSU at a good time to where it's still early in the year. We don't know what this team really looks like for LSU yet. So I think South Carolina definitely has a good chance to go in here and go 3-0 for the first time since 2012.
What did Shane Beamer say? He said, get there at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, gosh.
No. Are you going to get there at 6 o'clock in the morning, Jack?
Absolutely not. I'm covering a high school game the day before, and, like, I'll drive back the night of, but, like, I hate that this game's at noon. Like, I'm normally cool with noon games, but it is, it's brutal.
Well, we talk about it all the time. Like, what is the best in terms of a media perspective? Like, when you're covering the game, what is the best time to have a game? Is it at noon, 3:30, or 7:30? The night games, as much as everybody loves them and I love them, we don't finish until 2 o'clock in the morning. So you really got to be locked in. You got to have your coffee for the day. I don't drink coffee, so
Neither
it was
do
just off of pure vibes until 2 o'clock in the morning. It's a night game, but obviously that energy and that atmosphere at night would be incredible against LSU. You got a noon kickoff, though. You got to work with what you have. And of course, College Game Day coming to town as well. So it's going to be exciting for South Carolina. And I agree with what you said, Jack. I think it's really just about keeping the emotions very even keeled heading into this weekend, being calm, being composed. You have the national spotlight on you. You have College Game Day coming to South Carolina for the first time in a decade. So it's really about locking in, taking care of business, and doing what you need to do in order to be successful against LSU. We heard from Shane Beamer. That's where he said for you all to show up at 6 a.m. So if you're coming to Columbia on Saturday, you heard it from the head football coach himself. But what else did you take away from yesterday with Shane Beamer that really stood out to you, Jack?
I think just keeping it all in perspective, right? I think, like I said before, you could easily get lost in all the hoopla and stuff, like he alluded to, and I think his team is going to be well prepared for it. But he also talked about, and Shane, he makes I don't want to say arrogant comment, but it's like he speaks his mind and he lets it be known. And talking about how bandwagon fans are going to be hopping on now and stuff and all that. And I thought that was interesting because he's honestly right. I mean, people, there were so many, as he put it, false narratives out there about this team after the first game of the season. And he's using that as motivation to his team to, like, okay, like, a lot of people are counting you guys out already. Like, let's go and do this. And they go out there and win. And now everyone's back on the train. So I'm interested to see what happens after this week, how much the excitement continues to build if South Carolina does win. But I think he's got them ready, and he knows it's a big task. I mean, he knows the biggest battle is, like I said before, at that offensive line versus Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard position. It's gonna be one there in this game, I think. But South Carolina just has to continue to play the way they have. And this was an interesting point. I think he said at the end of the press conference was they don't need to change. Now, what does that mean exactly? Because obviously you need to change throughout the season to develop and only grow because you can't make improvements if you don't change. He meant more so in terms of the way they prepare. He feels very good about what they're doing right now, and obviously it's reflected in the results because they're not 2-0 by accident. It's not like they squeaked out another win here that they shouldn't have gotten. They beat Kentucky handedly, dominated that game from start to finish, and that goes into a good preparation. So as long as they keep doing that, I think they're in a good position, and we'll have to see what happens. But LSU is going to be ready as well. And speaking of which, happy to bring our esteemed guest, LSU on-3 beat writer from the Bengal Tiger, Matthew Broom. How we doing, man?
Hey there, how are y'all?
Good, good. Thank you for hopping on and joining us. Really appreciate it. Sure, you're getting busy here. I know you're hopping on 107.5 The Game with Wes Mitchell here pretty shortly, but appreciate you squeaking in some time here.
Yeah, no problem. Like I told y'all, it's a hurricane season here, so we have a storm or a Cat 1 coming through here. So everything is, clearing the porches and stuff like that, but it's not too bad. So that's the good news.
Yeah, I was listening to Brian Kelly's press conference yesterday. He was mentioning that I think he got a question about the hurricane and stuff. So hopefully everyone's safe out there in Baton Rouge and all that good stuff. But wanted to get into some of the questions that we got for you here. With this LSU team, obviously right now they're in a better spot than they were after losing to Southern Cal. Nicholls State obviously played pretty well against the Tigers in Baton Rouge, but
Yeah.
what's your feeling on this team right now? Has it changed since before the preseason at all?
It's definitely changed a bit. I think a lot of people going into the season maybe had a little higher expectations for the defense. Coming off of a year where they were abysmal on the defense side of the ball. Obviously had Jane Daniels, Heisman winner, and 2 first-round picks at receiver. But defensively, you bring in Blake Baker. You have some talent with Harold Perkins, Savion Jones, and in the secondary, you hoped that you could take a step forward, but defensively, I think there are still some concerns. Harold Perkins has not been as dynamic as they've hoped, and with that being the case, their offense has a lot of pressure on them, similar to last year. And Nussmeier's been really good. I think the offense has been pretty much what we expected. Nussmeier's been awesome. The receivers are good. Offensive line is good. But the defense hasn't taken that step forward that I think most people expected going into the year. So it gave them some problems against USC, and then against Nicholls, it was a little too uncomfortable. It was a little too much of Nicholls breaking a 67-yard run in the start of the third quarter and making a 2-point game. But other than that, it's been all right.
Well, Matthew, thank you so much for joining us here on the show this morning. So great to have you and really excited about this weekend's game. My question for you as someone who covers LSU on a day in, day out basis, and you do your research leading up to these games, and I'm sure you've done some on South Carolina throughout this week. What do you think the biggest challenge that South Carolina presents to LSU is?
Yeah, I mean, just looking through South Carolina's first 2 games, I think it's obviously been the defense. I think it's been the ability to get pressure on the quarterback, the ability to change up their looks, to blitz, to bring different blitzers, and then obviously just have defensive line talent in general. So I've been impressed with that, and I think even though LSU has a very talented defensive line or offensive line and pass protection with Will Campbell at offensive tackle, Emory Jones at offensive tackle. I think they're going to be challenged with the looks that South Carolina is going to bring. I think South Carolina, I mean, as we know, as y'all know, it's 10 sacks, 6 turnovers in 2 games. And even if we don't think Old Dominion and Kentucky are that great, it's still something that LSU is going to have to account for. So I'm interested to see that type of aggressive defense going against LSU this week.
For Gamecock fans, sorry, Jack.
No, you're good. You're good.
You can go into it. You take the next question. You go.
Yeah, no, sure. So you mentioned Nussmeier and this offense and stuff. Obviously, John Emery, running back for the Tigers, is out for the year. At least to me, from what I see and understand, seems like LSU throws the ball a lot more, even with Emery. But now that he's out and stuff, I mean, what are your expectations for this run game this weekend? I mean, it's going to be a little wet, it seems, in Columbia with the rain and stuff. I don't know how much that's going to impact LSU's passing game. I know they got great receivers and stuff. But, I mean, what's the expectation for this run game moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's a valid concern for LSU fans who were told throughout the offseason that they'd be able to run the ball. And, like I said, the offensive line was a Joe Moore Award finalist last year, and they returned 4 to 5 starters. So the thought was that even without Jaden Daniels on the team, they'd be able to traditionally run the ball, handing the ball off to Caleb Jackson and Josh Williams. Those are the two bell cow backs. And then John Emery comes in and has an awesome first game of the season and then obviously tears his ACL. So nothing's really changed. The reasoning from Brian Kelly, and it does check out when you watch the tape, but the reasoning is that USC and Nichols played really heavy boxes and tried to take away the run. Personally, I don't know why Nichols in particular would try to load up against the run, considering talent LSU has at receiver, but they were aggressive, and so that's the reasoning why LSU has been limited in the run game. I'm interested to see how South Carolina plays them, whether they do try to take away the run or they try to maybe slow down Garrett Nussmeier a little bit more. But either way, LSU is going to have to be able to run the ball. Like you said, its conditions aren't great. And honestly, through 2 games, I just don't think the run blocking has been up to snuff to this point from LSU's offensive line. So it's a test, it's a challenge, and I think LSU definitely knows that. I'm just interested in maybe more so in how South Carolina chooses to defend them.
It's going to be poppin', as we say at Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday afternoon, noon kickoff for this game. Obviously, College Game Day coming to town as well. Have you been to South Carolina yet, Matthew?
I've been to South Carolina. I was in Charleston actually last year for the Charleston tip-off at the University of Charleston. For LSU played there and there were a bunch of good teams, Utah and Houston and so on. So that was a basketball tournament. And then before that, I've been to Myrtle Beach when I was a little
Columbia.
younger. So
Never
no,
Columbia. All right.
no.
Well, that's exciting. You're going to have some fun for sure.
Yeah.
This weekend, what are you most looking forward to about experiencing the environment at the University of South Carolina?
Yeah, I think anytime you get to see a road, an SEC venue in general, I think it's always like a bucket list thing. Been to A&M, Arkansas, and a couple others, but LSU is one of the reasons that I enjoy this job so much is being in those venues and seeing the games play out and just seeing the passion that the fans have and everything like that. And so that's honestly what I'm excited for. And then obviously I'll get College Game Day coming for the first time, and I don't even remember how long they said it's been. Was it 10 years? I think it was
10 years. Been a while.
Yeah, I know the slate's not great, but hey, it's still a fun game for both sides. I mean, for both sides, it's a important game. I mean, if South Carolina wins, you're 3-0 with 2 SEC wins to start off the year. And obviously, if LSU wins, then you start off the year the way you want to, getting back after the USC loss.
What's the big question? What's the perception around Brian Kelly right now out in LSU?
I mean, it's still fine. I mean, the frustrations from the USC loss are still there because it's 3 straight years where you've lost a season opener, and this year they're favored by 4 or 5 points, neutral site. I think they were the more talented team against USC, and I think they had I know they had 3 chances to put that game away, or to go up 2 possessions, and they never did. So it's definitely a lost opportunity, and that it really removed any slack that he had going into the year because the expectation is to make the playoffs. The expectation is to be a top 10, top 12 team in year 3. And so now you lose that first game. Now you have to beat South Carolina on the road. You're going to probably have to beat like A&M on the road. Ole Miss comes to town in like 4 weeks. If you beat them, then it's a big stepping stone. So there's just not a lot of room for error at this point. Once that second loss happens, if it does, then I think it'll turn pretty quickly. But through 2 games, I wouldn't say his perception is great, but nobody's happy at 1-1 for LSU.
For the South Carolina fans, Matthew, that maybe don't have a ton of background on LSU, they've just kind of watched them a little bit here and there in their first couple of games of the season. What's your elevator pitch? How would you quickly describe this group to them?
Yeah, I think Garrett Nussmeier going into the year was one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country, and now that's been confirmed. I think he's a really, really awesome arm talent. He still has to work out the kinks. He's not a perfect quarterback, but you pair him with Kyron Lacey, who I think is either a first-round receiver or a top 2-round receiver this year. The offense is awesome. Like I said, the offensive line returns 4 to 5 starters from a Joe Moore Award finalist. So the offense is going to score points. They'd score it differently from last year, where it was Jaden Daniels and an explosive play every time down the field. But defensively is where they're going to have to, prove themselves. And I think that's going to be really fun to watch this week. South Carolina has its questions on offense, and I think LSU should be able to slow them down. And even though LSU's secondary is its biggest question, I'm interested to see if Lenora Sellers and company can attack them through the air at all.
I know this is probably a hard question, but if you had to choose a key player for this weekend for LSU that you think really needs to show out against South Carolina in order for the outcome to be in the Tigers' favor, who is the player that you think is going to play that critical role on Saturday at Williams-Brice?
Yeah, on offense, just looking at it, I mean, I'll go with an offensive lineman. I think Will Campbell and you could throw Emory Jones in there at the other tackle spot, but I think Will Campbell at left tackle in particular. We've talked about this South Carolina pass rush and the blitzes and that everything that they do on that side of the ball. I do think that the offensive line is going to be tested for the first time. I mean, USC has a quality pass rush, but I think South Carolina is a lot more aggressive and a lot more dynamic in that regard. So I look at a guy like Will Campbell, who is going to be a top 10, 15 pick in the draft, and say, all right, you cannot get beat. And there's really no indication that he will or that he will, struggle in a huge way. But if he has a bad game, then it changes things, and it will maybe put Nussmeier on his back a couple more times than he wants to. So I think that could really change things. So I look at Will Campbell and that offense line in general to have to play really well.
All right, man. I'm going to put you on the spot before we let you get out of here. Prediction for the game. What's your final score going to be? It's okay. There's no wrong answers.
No, we do our prediction on Friday. I'm trying to think. I spent a lot of yesterday morning watching South Carolina, so I feel like I have a decent grasp of what they do well, and I think this is a South Carolina team that is kind of very you know what you're going to get, I think, for the most part, even though it's been 2 very different games in ODU and Kentucky. I think the run game, I think the pass rush, I think the defensive aggression in general. I do think it gives LSU some problems. So I think this is a lower scoring game. I don't know what the spread's at or the total's at. I think it's in the 60s, but I'll take. I think LSU has enough offensive firepower to get the win. I'll go LSU 28-17. Lower scoring game here, which.
Yeah. So they're going to cover them because it's +7 right now.
It's 7,
so.
yeah.
And it went down to 50.5 as the over under. So.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I didn't even know what I haven't looked at my bet.
Oh no, I didn't know either. But appreciate you hopping on, man. If you want to real quick just plug anything you got going on work wise or where the people can find you and follow you.
The Bengal Tiger on 3. Obviously on 3 is our network. So follow, check us out over there. We have all the content going up. If y'all want a better look at LSU, if you're a subscriber to the South Carolina site, you can come check out our content and see how everything's going over there. We'll have our preview podcast up on Friday because the hurricane will come through Wednesday and Thursday. So hopefully everything's back to normal on Friday. But thank y'all for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
Stay safe out there.
For sure. Appreciate y'all.
All right. See you Saturday. And that was Matthew Bruin from LSU's On 3 site, the Bengal Tiger. They do a great job over there. So definitely, if you want to, stay in touch with what LSU's got going on coverage-wise this week, definitely go give them a look, in addition to us, of course. But Kendall, that was pretty good, right?
Yeah, so great always to hear the insight of someone that covers a team that you're facing on a day in, day out basis. As I mentioned, we can do all that we can. And of course, we do our prep and our research on LSU and every other team that South Carolina plays throughout the season. But we are not there in Baton Rouge every single day experiencing it, just like they are not in Columbia every day experiencing what goes on with the Gamecocks. I am cracking up at the comments. They did not like Matthew's prediction
No.
for LSU to win. But I think, a lot of people are feeling that way, and a lot of people will ultimately pick LSU. Who knows what the game day crew will go with. But I think, and Jack, definitely weigh in on this, if I'm South Carolina, I'm like, yeah, that's where I want to be. Like, I want to be the team that's considered the underdog in this situation. I want to be the team that maybe, I don't want to say has less pressure, but has a little bit less of this thought surrounding them that they should win this game and they have to win this game, et cetera, et cetera. I think if I'm South Carolina, I'm like, okay, like, yeah, you pick LSU. Like, I feel good about my chances. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely a little fuel to the fire, but at the same time, like, I mean, yeah, if you look at it that way, sure, I'm sure these guys will use it as motivation. But at the end of the day, like, I don't even really feel like it matters that much because at the end of the day, because it's like they're not even going to see it because they're already, on the field. They're getting ready because this game is right after game day ends. So, I mean, game day will be inside Williams-Brice. I think they're moving inside around 11. So, I mean, maybe they'll see Corso, who, whatever headgear he puts on. But I don't really think it matters that much because it's a noon game and stuff, and they're already out there getting ready and all that. But I'm sure they'll hear through the grapevine during this week that a lot of people are picking LSU or whatever the case might be. I think a lot of people are going to lean towards LSU because of the name brand and all the talent they have. Because let's be real, not to turn any Gamecock fans off here, but LSU simply has more talent. That's just how it is, how it's always been, and this isn't something new or earth shattering. I mean, it's LSU we're talking about here. But for South Carolina, they got a lot of talent too, and I'm not sure. I haven't even decided yet how I'm going to pick this game whenever we do staff picks. But, I mean, I know my original predictions for the whole season, I had South Carolina losing this game. But I could easily see them winning it too. It's one of those that this team is a true wild card every week. You never know what you're going to get. And I definitely think they are ready to step up to the task and let it be known that they're for real. I mean, this is their kind of like – not make or break game, but it's a game where it's like if they win, it's like they're 3-0. A lot more eyes are going to be on you, and you can really set the tone for a perfect 4-0 month. Including August, but you can be 4-0 going into Ole Miss and the bye weekend. We know how crazy that would be.
Yeah, it is definitely an important game for South Carolina, and every week is important, throughout the college football season. We certainly know that, but as you look beyond in South Carolina's schedule, and you don't want to do that. Like we say, you just want to take it week by week. And I know that sounds like coach speak, but it's genuinely true. You want to take it week by week. But when you continue to look at South Carolina's schedule and you're looking at Ole Miss and you're looking at Alabama and you're looking at Oklahoma and you're looking at all these other SEC teams, it doesn't get better. It doesn't get easier for South Carolina. So you get wins where you can, when you can. And this weekend for South Carolina is an absolutely massive opportunity to potentially come away with the win. You can't overstate how big that would be, right, Jack?
Yeah, they need this win on Saturday. Like, I mean, it's not a lost season if they lose this game. Like, I mean, they're 2-0 right now. They're fine. But in terms of getting to a bowl game and stuff, I mean, we talked about how big the Kentucky game is. They need to win this game. I mean, it sets them up on the right path for one. I mean, this is just huge in general. Like, I mean, you win this game, the national spotlight's already on you. Recruits have been through the roof wanting to come to this game because game day is coming and all the excitement about it. I mean, you're going to be able to – it's like you're going to be able to flip so many guys that maybe are, like, attached to other schools right now with their commitments because, as we know, commitments don't mean anything anymore really until you officially sign and all that. So it's a good chance for Shane Beamer and co. to win a big game against a ranked team, but it also really helps the future of the program and gets you, to where you want to go. And we'll see. I mean, starting out 3-0, let's assume they beat Akron next week. You're either going to be 3-1 or 4-0 going into the bye week, and then, as the comment reads below, you're going to play Mr. Juice Wells and Ole Miss, and if you win that game, I mean, you're 5-0, and then you go into Tuscaloosa. So, I mean, you don't want to look too far ahead, but it's definitely going to be a huge game for this team.
I haven't decided who I'm going to pick for this weekend. I'm still marinating on it a little bit. Last week, I picked Kentucky. I will admit it openly on the show. Yes, I did pick Kentucky, but I was just doing reverse psychology. So at the end of the day, you're welcome for reverse psychology and that win. Yes, October certainly will not be easy, and that is the truth. We've known that for months as we've looked at this schedule and dissected it and talked all about it. But again, this weekend, all about LSU. We just asked Matthew this question. I'm curious to hear your answer, Jack. Who is your clutch player for this weekend? Like, who is the guy? And I'm not going to let you pick offense, defense, and special teams. I'm making you pick
just one
guy.
Oh yeah, one guy. We got to nail it down.
Yes, we are narrowing it down. Who you think is going to come in clutch for South Carolina and really be a pivotal player against LSU?
Let's see. That's a great question. I'm looking at the roster right now and who I really feel like. So, I'm going to say
I caught you.
You did. I'm going to say Rocket Sanders, and I'll tell you why real quick. You look at Lenore Sellers and all these other guys on offense. Yeah, they need to have good games and they need to take that next step forward. But man, the run game needs to be better this week. It needs to get back to what it was in week 1, and we saw some flashes of what Rocket could do on the running the football against Kentucky. He had the nice run that should have maybe been a touchdown, but he got pushed out of bounds, and then he just pummels his way into the end zone. No one's taking him down from 6 yards out for a touchdown. And I mean, there's shades of what he could do, but it's not the full thing yet. So big game, big moment. We know what he can do. I know he's had success against LSU in the past. Can he get over 100 yards this week? I mean, that would be pretty cool. So I think Rocket's probably my pick, and I know everyone wants to see this other guy get involved. Nick Harbor jet sweeps. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be nice? But again, he's got to be able to catch the ball. He's got to be able to run the right way. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why Nick Harbor is probably not involved as much as anyone would like in this offense right now. But if I'm going with anyone, I'm going with Rocket Sanders. What about you?
I think that's a great pick. I mean, Rocket Sanders, we talked about the weather as well on Saturday, and that's something we mentioned at the beginning of the show. But if it is rainy, the importance of the run game being on top of its game for South Carolina is even more so important. So yeah, I think Rocket Sanders is a fantastic pick. Obviously, you could also go with Dylan Stewart because you look at the LSU offense, you need someone that's really going to show out defensively for South Carolina. Dylan Stewart has been beyond impressive in his first couple of games with the Gamecocks. And just to think about how young he is and the kind of impact that he's made already, it's so exciting. And I've loved having the opportunity to watch him over these last few weeks. So I know I just cheated there because I picked two people.
It's okay. It's okay.
I picked Dylan because you picked Rocket. So we'll just go with those two. And let us know what you all think watching. Who do you think that key player is for South Carolina this weekend that could really have a huge impact on the outcome of this game? We talked about the weather for Saturday, Jack, and we mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show. Some people asking questions about it. How concerned are you for South Carolina about this weather and the way that it could potentially impact their play, if at all?
Let's take a look right now. Oh, and by the way,
we're going to throw it over to meteorologist Jack Veltri.
Yeah. Let me get my green out. I will say, by the way, it's going to be Dylan Stewart's birthday on Saturday, so turning 19.
I can see that. Yes.
So that's definitely helping. Let's see.
Happy birthday, Dylan Stewart. Early birthday.
High of 81, low of 69. Okay. 55% chance of rain. Let's see. I mean, the precipitation is not going to be anything like drastic. It seems like it's going to be just over 20% throughout the day. So I mean, if it might sprinkle here and there maybe, but like I don't really expect it to have a major impact. Just bring a poncho or whatever the case is if you're going to this game. But I think it's being blown out of proportion a little bit with the weather and people talking about, oh, game day is going to get shut down or whatever. And this game might not start on time. No, they'll be fine. Like unless there's lightning in the area like last time and half the people leave the stadium and never return, then it's like this entire environment changes. But I do think for South Carolina, they're going to be able to, no pun intended, weather the storm and be able to make it a good game. If they win, we'll figure that out later. But I don't think it'll be that big of an impact.
If they win, Columbia is going to be going crazy.
Oh, 5 points is about to be
5 points is going
and you have the whole night to celebrate. Like, think about it. People are going to be out of there by like 4 o'clock. Oh man, it's going to be crazy. So. But,
well, we just got the weather report from meteorologist Jack Veltri, so very much appreciate that, and I think that's good to put it into perspective. It's not necessarily going to be an absolute downpour on Saturday, given the weather does like to change and it does like to switch up on us, but hey, maybe it'll be sunny on Saturday. You never know.
It's Columbia we're talking about.
This Wednesday. Yeah, it's Columbia, so really anything can happen.
Anything goes.
I lived there for 4 years. We know the way that things can work out here. Jack, I know this is early and you still have a few days to decide, but where are you leaning right now for Saturday's game? He's mad at me for asking him this question because he still thought he had time to decide, but it doesn't change. This isn't final answer. It's just, what are you thinking?
Well, let's see. I was right about South Carolina beating Kentucky last week, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe I just go with it again. At the same time, in my regular predictions, I'm so far I'm 2 for 2 with how my predictions are going in my 8-4 South Carolina season. But this is a game that I did have them losing. I don't know if I'm going to go with it, but you know, I do think this team. I can't give a straight prediction yet. I am leaning more towards South Carolina. I think right now, just because of all the, the home field advantage is a real thing. And LSU is not particularly great on the road. They're a little banged up right now. I think South Carolina has an insanely good defense. And I know they're going to meet their match this weekend with LSU having a pretty solid offensive line and a fine quarterback. But at the same time, it's not like Garrett Nussmeier is a seasoned vet. He's not Spencer Rattler out here starting for 2+ seasons or whatever. I mean, this is a guy that earned the job. I mean, Jaden Daniels was the starting quarterback for LSU last year, and Nussmeier got the start in the bowl game last year, and now he's taking over the reins this year. And he hasn't gotten a true SEC road start yet. So it's kind of like Lenore Sellers last week. I'm not saying Nussmeier is going to, crap his pants or anything out there, but if they're able to get some sort of push and create pressure in the pocket and you force some bad throws, I mean, I don't know. I think this is going to be a little bit more low scoring, but I definitely could see South Carolina getting the win. Not sure how I'm leaning yet, but I'm thinking it is possible for South Carolina to get this win.
You're saying it's a possibility, and I think that's a big key as well that we haven't talked about as much, that first SEC road game for LSU. And we know that Williams-Brice Stadium is no easy environment to play in, especially when it's packed, especially when the fans are excited and ready and geared up for the moment. And I think that's exactly where South Carolina fans are going to be at come this Saturday. Yes, LSU did play in Las Vegas earlier in the season. Yes, Las Vegas is much closer to Southern Cal than it is to LSU, but it's still not that SEC road matchup that they will be experiencing this weekend in an environment like Williams-Brice Stadium. So I think that certainly will play a role this weekend, and it's up to the fans as well. Shane Beamer says it every single week. The fans need to show up, the fans need to show out, and they need to make it hard on LSU to come in there and to effectively execute the game plan that Brian Kelly puts into place. So I think that's huge. I'm sad I won't be there on Saturday, Jack.
Yeah.
I need for you to send me like videos. Everyone post it everywhere. I'll have a lot of FOMO, but I will in fact be there in spirit and watching from afar. I know it's going to be so electric in Columbia, South Carolina. On Saturday.
You hope it is, and I really do hope the weather holds out, because I mean, even when we had the lightning delay 2 weeks ago, and I get it's hot outside and stuff, but I mean, it was still a nice day out, and people, I mean, I'm not going to be critical here, but I mean, like like that. The stadium was like half full after the time the delay ended. So you hope people stick it out for this type of game. I know everyone's gonna be drinking and stuff and having a little fun and maybe too much fun in some cases to where they feel sick. But I mean, you hope they stick it out, and it should create a hostile environment for LSU because that is ultimately what it's going to take. I mean, it's an underrated factor in this game. It doesn't matter on the stat sheet at all, but it's something where if you can really get inside the heads of those LSU players and make it tough for them, I mean, it only benefits you.
Well, everybody be safe out there on Saturday for sure. Be safe and make good decisions. I know I sound like a mom when I say that, but just want to give you guys that sweet little reminder as you get ready for Saturday. One last question before we round out here. We're going to hear from coordinators today. What do you want to hear from Dow Loggins and Clayton White ahead of this Saturday's matchup?
Well, I was asking, we spoke to Jalen Kilgore yesterday a little bit about this, and I wanted to ask him about, how does the defensive approach go into this game? Because you guys were able to take away the pass game last week and have a lot of success with that. And obviously with LSU, they like to throw the ball around. So how do you go about keeping it the same, or do you mix it up a little bit? And they just need to play their game, Jalen Kilgore was saying. So I'm interested to see what White has to say today. And then from Loggins, I think he really got into he received a lot of criticism in week one for his play calling and stuff. And I think rightfully so, because it just wasn't good enough. And maybe that's coming down to player execution. But at the end of the day, it is ultimately on the coaches. I feel like he kind of got in his bag a little bit last week with a big win and stuff, big lead. How does that continue? Does he feel like he was able to really call whatever he wanted and it just worked? I mean, I think that's kind of something I'll be interested to hear today whenever we get to talk to him later. And coordinators will be speaking with us at 12:20 p.m. So you can go ahead and follow along with us for all coverage and live updates on GamecockCentral.com. And so that's probably the two things I'm interested to hear from those guys.
Well, we will hear from them in just a little bit. As Jack mentioned, GamecockCentral.com. Follow us at Gamecock Central on social medias. Jack, anything that you want to add before we leave?
Well, since you asked me for my prediction, what about you? Yeah, what are you leaning towards, huh?
I'm going to lean towards South Carolina to pull it off this weekend. I'll give my final predictions and my reasons why. And of course, I'm not being held to this. I still have a couple of days to potentially change my mind. But I think as of right now, I just think the excitement and everything surrounding the program right now and where South Carolina's at, and with it being LSU's first SEC road game, I think that South Carolina really kind of hit their stride last week against Kentucky. And I hope that they keep it going here this week. So we will get into all of our predictions later on in the week. Shameless plug. Stay tuned for that. But anything else, Jack?
No, just excited, ready to go. We wish you were here, but it is what it is. Have a nice double header today. that's going to be a fun day.
Thank you very much. And just want to take this time here right now to finish off the show. 23 years ago today, September 11th, 2001, a tragic and terrible day in our nation. So just want to take this time to send love and prayers and thoughts to every single family affected by this terrible tragedy, and just want to, take some time today to reflect on what happened 23 years ago as we still remember and mourn those lives that we tragically lost on September 11th, 2001. So wanted to definitely say that here today as we round out the show, and just really appreciate each and every one of you taking the time this morning to come and listen to GC Live. So appreciate it. Thank you as always. And for Jack Veltri, I'm Kendall Smith. We'll see you guys soon.